Boom. And let's go. Welcome everybody to the Inside Ride, a top 20 training web show focused on what's really going on in education. And really what's going on our inside rides, our inner life. So each web show talks a little bit about some happenings from the previous week, plus spotlights a fantastic guest that's doing amazing things in education. Tonight's web show will go as follows. There'll be a brief intro, a little back and forth with Tommy Two-Tone over there. We will then introduce our wonderful partner, Willow Sweeney, and then our guest star of the evening. And then we'll do some Q&A. We'll wrap up by telling you what's happening next web show. My name is Kevin Brennan. I'm one of the owners of Top 20 Training, one of the writers, one of the speakers, and old blue shirt McGee there is Tom. How you doing there, pal?
I don't have anything to do with this show. I just walked in off the street. I'm just Zoom bombing. I'm Tom from Top 20. Glad to see you. We have an intimate group tonight that's live, but what we're finding out is that there's a lot more people watching this recording in the comfort of their own homes and on their own time frame. So I have to keep giving a shout out to those who can't contribute questions in real time. But if you ever need us or anything, hit us on email if you're watching this as a recording.
And speaking of contributing, contributors are fantastic. So as we get into tonight, if you have any questions, thoughts you want to share, hit the chat or hit the Q&A function, and I will interrupt folks and get some questions asked, because your questions are great. So what do you got for us, Tommy? What's going on this week?
My thought is mindset and metacognitive ability of a human being, which I define as you got your thinking, and then you can think about your thinking. And behind me is the Keep Your Day poster that Willow has made famous for us. But like meerkats and rhinoceroses and boll weevils, none of them are metacognitive. Human beings are different than meerkats because we got this thinking, and if it's negative or positive, we can analyze that and do something about it. Metacognitive is a word I've never used since Psych 101, but we just call it thinking about our thinking in Top 20. Just something for people to be aware of. Think about that tomorrow. Think about your thinking tomorrow.
Yeah. It's easy. It's easy to just go on autopilot as a human being because we're pretty good at autopilot. But when we give thought to our inner ride, our inner life, we can learn a little bit more about why we're doing what we're doing and perhaps make some interesting changes. So
and choices.
Yeah.
Without that metacognitive ability, we don't have any choice in our thinking.
For sure.
Red light, you're supposed to be crazy, okay, or not.
Yep.
Think about your thinking.
Yep. Hey,
let's get to it.
I'm excited. Who would you like to introduce here? What is this WS individual that's going to be?
Yeah. A quick. You want to bring her on as we talk about her?
Bring her on. Get her talking.
This is one of our, there's 4 of us that own Top 20 Training and as co-owners, authors, speakers. I met this spunky graduate of University of St. Thomas 20 plus years ago. It's been a real privilege for me to hang out with Willow all these years. She's a driving force behind Top 20. She's become a national figure and speaker. It's been wonderful to watch with pride as this young woman has developed into. I used to think I was mentoring her. That quickly changed in about 10 minutes. She's my sister. She's my friend. She's my compatriot, and I love her. So, ladies and gentlemen, Willow.
The love is very, very clearly there. Hi, Willow.
I will say that's nice. Thank you, dear friend. And thank you for not pointing out that I'm not young anymore. And now I'm your middle-aged.
They can do the math. They can do the math.
Yeah.
I know. So hello, thank you for having me. What a fun little thing you two are getting together and doing on these Tuesdays.
It is
I'm impressed. This is
fun, Willow. And when Tom and I were talking about who we should have next, you've just glowed about a certain someone. And so we thought, Tom and I can't do the intro justice or even navigating the conversation. So I'm going to bring her on while you do a little bit of an intro.
Oh, thank you. Good. Okay. Well, yeah, if you're tuning into this web show, you already know a little bit of history about Top 20 Training, but that's what we do is we travel around the country and we get to go into different school districts and different schools, and we get to meet so many really fine educators and see what's going on around the country. And somebody who has been a professional constant in my speaking career has been Carmen Concepcion out of CMS, which is Charlotte Mecklenburg Schools. There she is. Hi, Carmen. So Carmen has been a longtime principal. I think, I don't want to overstep, but I think this is your 10th year being a
That's
principal
right.
of elementary schools in Charlotte Mecklenburg. And for those of you who don't come from that part of the country, Charlotte Mecklenburg is as big of a school district, I think, that we have in this country. It's really just a metropolis of education. Carmen, I mean, it's over 100 and some thousand students. What's the
About
number?
149,000 students.
So 149,000 students. So this is a much bigger school district and than most people teach under. So Carmen has not only started in Charlotte her principalship at one school, but she was so good that they then allowed her to go to a brand new school as well. So I want her to be able to talk about all of her accomplishments in some really fantastic schools. So why don't you give us just a very quick intro, Carmen, if you will. What was your career in education? How did it start? You weren't born as a principal. So where did you start?
I think I was born a teacher. I was teaching dolls from a young age, but I actually started in Miami. This is my 22nd year as an educator, my 10th year as a principal. So I taught in Miami for about 9 years, then moved to Charlotte and became an assistant principal, and then a principal. I was at one school for 7 years, which is where in my second year I met Willow, and I saw her at a national conference, and I saw her speak to the whole room, and then I heard she had sessions, and it was official. I became a stalker. So I went to every session that she gave, and by the beginning of the following school year, I had her in my school already, bringing her top 20 just tenets into what we were doing there. We definitely needed it.
We have a really big policy at Top 20 Training. You're not a stalker when you pay us to come in and speak to your group. That stalking, that does not make friend. Yeah, and I think what I would say that you are somebody for me who has been just a career-long friend in the business and has also brought me along with you to every school, because something that you saw that first time about the content in Top 20 Training, you saw as important and you wanted it for your people. I'm not going to spend the next 20 minutes. Yes.
Yeah, because we all know Willow is magnetic. So of course you want Willow coming around. But what else was it about content? What else was she sharing that kind of hooked you, other than our wonderful Willow?
So the one thing I'm going to say about you, Carmen, first, and then I want you to answer this, because as an educator, the value that you project the most for your staff as a principal is hospitality. You have a sense of making everyone on your staff know that they are important, and you go about that very strategically as a leader. And so I'd like for you to share the things that you saw in Top 20 Training right away that you thought, boom, that's what I want my staff to have. And then we'll go from there. But let's start with that question. Like, what did you see?
So when I started at the school that I started, and it was a very different type of environment, toxic environment. I wasn't used to it. It was just a lot of hurt that those teachers had gone through. And the first 2 years, I really wanted to throw in the towel by the time I saw Willow in that national conference. And really what I loved about it is that it gave everyone ownership, right? It didn't just talk about the culture of the school. It talked about your culture inside of your head and your heart. And so that meant that it wasn't only me that was responsible for all of this, but it was going to be all of us. And I wanted my staff to see that it is in all of our hands, and I can't change your heart, right? And so you have to have that work done inside of you. And that's really what hooked me about Top 20. It wasn't an educational program. It wasn't, some pretty thing to follow, a 3-step thing. It's about learning to control your emotions and your negativity and channeling it. It's not about squashing it, because we all know sometimes we're below the line, right? But it's about owning it and knowing how to come out of that and how to help those around us come out of it as well.
That's great. That's fantastic. Because and you and I have had this conversation numerous times. You have a sense that if you can get the staff member, and in the same way, a student, to own it first, to own their own jazz, to say, this is the energy I bring in on a day-to-day basis, right? Then we get rid of some blame. Then we get rid of this is toxic because of leadership, or this is toxic because of my coworker, or you've been at some Title I schools that this is just too tough to teach here. That's why we're grumpy and complain all the time. Yeah. And you have had no time for that. You've said, let's every individual own your own inside life. And then you focused really heavily on our work about workplace culture. For those of you who might be attending the Webba show, we do a big deal about getting negativity out and replacing it with real healthy energy. And since I've known you and you've seen that piece, you've always asked me to come back to that with every group. What is it that you see about the Top 20 Training workplace culture stuff that has been meaningful?
Well, those 4 pillars, right? It's honor the absent, see the problem, own the problem, help each other succeed, and communicate you matter. Those 4 things are what hold all of this up, right? And so when you first came to our school, the first school I was at, you did your 2-day thing, and then when you were leaving, you said, this can all be butterflies and flowers for 2 weeks, and then we forget the language. So I just, that stuck in my head, and I was like, this cannot be just a 2-week thing. And we made it part of our language. Those 4 things we're responsible for. And it became like a social contract. So everybody that came into even that school was going to get top 20 training, right? Because that's the thing. We as educators, we go through a training, 5 years ago, and then we don't revisit it. So in our school, in this one and in the previous one, because as soon as I knew that I had gotten the privilege to open this new school, my first phone call was to you, like, I need you to come here, because I wanted to start like that, right? Just before, it was breaking old habits and starting new ones at the other school. And it changed that culture. I mean, the entire culture shifted in a way that you can't not imagine. And student achievement, we were the highest Title I school in the district for years in a row. We were state recognized, nationally recognized. So it's not only about the feel good, it's about the work that we have to do. And this is hard work. So we need tools to deal with it, right? So
yeah, it's not about lighting candles and everybody love each other, kumbaya. It's about kids learning.
That's right.
So I love, Carmen, the way you said it starts in here. Our formula has always been me, then we, and then them, the kids. But you got to start with that math teacher. You got to start with the custodial. You got to start with the lady letting people in the doorway, whoever your office assistant is. Then we go to us. Then we're ready for them. But I think you've cracked the code. Good for you.
They decided that they were going to do, it's the Wolfpack way, that they were going to come up with what it meant, what the expectations meant to be a teacher, to be a parent, to be a student at CELA, which is Charlotte East Language Academy. That's right. I got them all right? All
That's
those
right.
acronyms. It should be mentioned that you run a bilingual immersion program in Charlotte, and not only for the students. Many of the employees of CELA come from all over the world. Lots and lots of teachers from countries in South America and Central America and Mexico, and they come and they teach at her school, and then they stay. And it is your credit, friend, because you have created this very, very loving, very hospitable, but very structured expectation of what it means to be part of your school. And they all are in on it. And what's been interesting to me is we do a little bit of translation here and there for some of the idioms when I work with your school, but social and emotional intelligence is international. There is nothing that we aren't doing that doesn't bond us together even stronger. And that's been my joy of getting to work with you.
Yeah, the teachers love you. Spanish speaking and English speaking, they just have grown attached to you. So,
and me to them, guys. What other questions do you have about how she's implemented this with her community?
We got one from the crowd first. Carmen and panel, especially Willow and Carmen, how do we work with 8th graders who think they're too cool for all this? 8th graders who think I got it all down. I don't need this stuff. My family's fine. I'm getting some B's and A's, but doesn't everybody need this? How do we sell this?
So what we do is we have houses, like Harry Potter houses in our middle school. We have 4 houses, and we do advisory with them. And so in advisory, that's where we infuse these top 20 tenets and we talk about it. And I think that the important thing is like you said, Tom, we start with us and then it's them. So they are constantly hearing us talk about honor the absent, oh, don't avoid that tornado, or keep your day, or what trampoline do you need? So they're constantly hearing all this language from us. And so it becomes familiar to them to where like they kind of get curious, like, what is she talking about? I don't see a trampoline, so they kind of like hook onto that. I think you have to live it. Kids are intuitive and astute. You can't fool a child, right?
No.
Like they know it. And that's what I love about working with children. And so they need to see it real in your life and that you're living it. And then they're going to be able to live it. But if you're just spouting the curriculum at them and then they hear you talking in the lounge, or they hear you pass by and they hear you talking bad about somebody, then there you go.
Yep, you're right. Authenticity. I mean, kids are the best sniffers out of fake. And so just saying, hey, keep your day. Oops, I messed up. Let's honor, it doesn't work unless you're living it. And I think to the question too from Monica, for those that think it's too cool, we've experienced and seen kids and even adults sometimes make fun of the language a little bit, play with it because they're uncomfortable with it. And the whole idea is the language is there for common ground, common language. And then eventually it's the concepts that are alive and well. So exactly what Carmen said, just living it, modeling it, using the phrases when you can appropriate. Eventually we want them to just soak it in. But it's
I will say too that Carmen, you have a lot of teachers at your school. We always say, don't have the crabby teacher teach social and emotional intelligence. Like that's not going to work out. But if you can have the real bright-eyed teacher that all the kids are kind of gravitate to anyway, if that's the person that's giving it the information, it's going to soak in better. Carmen has a lot of those people on her staff, like there's not one in the middle school and one in the elementary. She's got a lot. So that's very helpful. But just from my point of view, because I taught this to freshmen with Tom in a classroom, one of the things that you would notice if you taped me presenting social and emotional skills, if you watched me with elementary school teacher or kids, middle school kids, high school kids, and adults, I am far more silly with this stuff with adults and probably primary grades than I ever am with middle school and high school, because you have to speak in a tone that they get. And I will say numerous times, what I'm about to say, really kind of cheesy. And I get it. The example is very cheesy, but it's just this idea so that you can learn it. Because this one's changed my life. Like I live differently now because I follow this thing. But I don't ever with 8th graders go, trampoline, we're bound. I mean, it'll kill it. It'll kill everything. So I like what Kevin said is I encourage kids of that age to go, no, I get it. It's cheese ball, but here's the problem. It works. So I can't just not share it with you because it works. So I think your tone is important when you're working with that age group. And by the way, let them just be too cool for school, because they'll never, ever grow up now not hearing this stuff. Right. They've now heard it as an 8th grader. They can have their hoodie up and they can, but they now know they can think about their thinking. If you didn't tell them, they would have never known. So the life-changing thing may happen later.
Cool. Thanks for the question, Monica.
Hey, Carmen, let's talk about honor the absent. That's the toughest one. Have you seen any growth? I mean, you've known Willow and she's done work with you for 8 years now. That's the tough one. I mean, we can all say hello in the halls when a Kevin comes down the hall. That's nice. But as soon as he rounds the corner, what am I saying about Kevin? Have you noticed anything in the adults that's transformed them at all?
Well, absolutely. And I'll speak about my first school because there, I mean, the not honoring the absent was rampant, right? And so that's where I saw a huge shift in it. And really, it was amazing to see how the positive people were done with these negative people and were done with, they were putting a stop to it. Like, they wanted to keep their lake clean. Right. So we kept talking about that. And some teachers would even avoid the teachers lounge. Like they just, and the negative people, they started to fall off. Either they turned it around or they went somewhere else because they realized that it just wasn't comfortable for them anymore there. Because, we would talk about it. If you're talking to me bad about, if somebody's talking bad about me to you, what are you doing to make them comfortable to do so? That's on you, right?
Right.
And so
what are the conversations you've participated in before about me that made them know you're somebody to talk to, right?
And why should I trust you when you leave here? You're going to talk about me somewhere else, right? But it did change tremendously. I mean, nowhere's perfect, but the culture in that school just turned around amazingly. Like I can't even begin to explain how huge it was.
And those people didn't all stay at your original school. Some of them went with you to the new school. So they're continuing on with Carmen. Some of them went other places, and I still hear from them. And I know you do. These are people, especially folks who speak both Spanish and English. Carmen's always been amazing by supplying her staff with whatever they need. So they have all the posters like you do, Top 20 Pottery Barn background there. They have all the books and the journals. So I get Facebook posts still from friends, Carmen, you know who have their whole book is Post-it noted and highlighted and notes in it. And he or she will post things on Facebook, sentences, and tag us. And they're at 2 and 3 other schools from when we originally met. So the same thing that hey, the 8th grader doesn't ever get to live now without hearing this. The teacher that had Carmen as an administrator never gets to have a career where they haven't worked in a place where this was valued.
And the reason it works, when Willow arrives in Charlotte, it's not like she's telling people something they don't know. Like you shouldn't be talking behind Carmen's back. Oh God, I never thought. Of course I know that. The beauty of this stuff is it's already there. And it's just Willow gets off an airplane and suddenly I'm reminded the truth of who I really am. I'm not a backstabber, right? But I've developed a habit,
And the normative culture is everything. Like you mentioned, Carmen. I mean, when enough people start, more often than not honoring rather than dishonoring, the folks that are negative start feeling a little uncomfortable. They start realizing, oh, that's not what happens here. And that's the goal. Because then, like Tom said, it goes down to the kids. Now the kids start living in that healthier culture. And it's never about perfection. No one's perfect. We're going to mess up. However, can we be intentional and deliberate as more often than not? If we can, joy.
And it's about temperature checks as well. We always that's why you have to keep it, you have to live it every day, right? Live it every day and just sometimes stop for a temperature check. Where are we at with honoring the absent or communicating you matter? And so we do that as well sometimes to make sure that we're in the right place.
Well, let's do that temperature check right now, because we're not having this conversation in March of 2019. We're having it in March of 2021. And you have continuously used this stuff bedrocking going through a worldwide pandemic. So can you share a little bit of what's gone on in the last year? And by the way, not all the stuff we can't control that we hate, because that's happening for every school district. But what about, because I've watched you, friend, prioritize, especially in a district when a lot of times things are mandated. It's so big, they're making decisions for everybody. And I have still watched you stay the course of what you find to be very, very important for you and your staff and the kids. How did you do that during such a time of upheaval?
Well, that's what you said is exactly right. There are things that I can't control. I filter as much as possible from my teachers, because I need them to be good, to take care of themselves, to take care of the kids. And, that's what we're here for, right? And so that's my classroom. My teachers are my classroom. That's kind of how I approach things. I'm a teacher at heart, right? And so it was important to me, and it still continues to be important to me. We need self-care. We need to take care of ourselves and check ourselves. This negativity can eat you alive. How many people, some people have the support of family at home, which sometimes will drive you crazy too, no matter how much you love them, right? And then some people don't have anybody to interact at home through all this pandemic. But I just really thought that it was so important, like, to continue. I want to communicate you matter, and I want you to have tools that can help you navigate all of this. So we're doing virtual small groups with Willow this year, and it's been great. I mean, they look forward to it. They love it. Of all the PD that I've done, and I'm a huge proponent of national PD, everything, because we're professionals and I want to treat teachers as such. Of all the PD that we've done, that's the top 20 is the one that has impacted the most, that I've gotten the most feedback on our insight surveys, on all of the things that I get back. Is top 20 changed my life. Top 20 has really given me tools. I loved when Willow came and talked to us about this. This is the one that stays with you, because it's the one that helps you have tools for yourself that then just bleed into everything.
If I could work with everyone just like you, dear, it would, education would just change overnight across this country. Thank you for everything that you do for all these people. All the, the kids in the building, without pause, you've done amazing things. But the heart and the soul of teachers matters so much, and you're doing it. You're doing it.
Thank you, because you've been certainly a foundational thing of what I've tried to work with. So
Willow's not worth a darn unless somebody brings her in, and that's Carmen. I'm serious.
I'm just a woman in my own living room talking to people. That's right. That's right.
I was a stalker till I became your friend, so it worked out.
Thanks so much for your night, Carmen.
Thanks,
Thank
Carmen.
you. It's been a pleasure.
All the best.
It just blows me away to see one person and their impact on thousands of people. I mean, it just reminds us again, the awesome responsibility we have as trainers.
Because school isn't corporate, right? School isn't corporate. Like, it would be great if we could have a little bit more professional nods like corporations get, but here's the deal, it's not. And she has created a family. And I don't mean that in a wishy-washy, non-professional way. Lots of the people that she hires come from other places where their families are still international. They were all by themselves through this pandemic. And she provided a structure that felt like family for lots of the adults, and certainly for the kids that they serve. I'm really proud of everything they're doing down there. It's
unreal. Well, and you know what? When people feel powerless, it's dangerous and it's ugly. And Carmen said, I want them to own it. They are a piece of this puzzle, and it is their problem. It is their solution. They need to own it. And when you have enough people owning and being actively engaged, you see what happens. She talked about test scores. She talked about kids in discipline. Fantastic. Well, we can't thank you enough for connecting us with her and being a part of this tonight. Sometime we're going to ask you, and we're just going to interview you, Willow. May come.
Wouldn't that be fun? You guys have been meeting separately without me all this time. Thanks for the invite. Now that you're Posey stars, I'm in.
Awesome.
Bye, you guys. Thanks for what you're doing.
Thanks. Love you.
Love you too.
Couple announcements. One, you people that are still listening live, remind somebody tomorrow that the recording's out, and you get that how, Kevin? You go
YouTube. Just go to our YouTube channel, Top 20 Training. You'll see it there. Share it with folks. We'll tweet it out. We want more people to hear from Carmen.
And maybe especially an administrator, because Carmen's role as administrator and ed leader, this might be something helpful for an ed leader. Before the 30th, we're coming out, people. I got 2 shots. I'm ready to go. So start thinking about August at your school, this spring, next fall. Start calling us. You can get us at top20training.com email. That's Tom at or Kevin at. And on the 30th, we're going to have Eric Nelson on. Eric is a guy that started a lot of really innovative educational projects, and he's now off trying to connect schools and students and showcase kids. And especially what we really love about Eric is it's always been about social emotional learning for Eric. So you're in for a treat if you join us 2 weeks from tonight.
And he's truly put the fun back into school. So that's going to be very, very valuable. Hey, thanks to everyone who joined us tonight. Thanks for being with us on the Inside Ride. We love you. We'll see you. Take care and see you soon.
Over and out.